Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something important happening in Zambia's digital world.
That's right. We're talking about the brand new Cybersecurity Act and the Cyber Crimes Act. These are numbers 3 and 4 of 2025.
Yeah, they just came into force in April 2025, replacing the older laws from 2021, so quite fresh.
Exactly. And what we want to do today is sort of unpack these for you. We've looked at the acts themselves, the official text, and also a helpful blog post from Kitwe Online that breaks things down.
So the plan is to figure out what these changes actually mean for, the average person using the internet in Zambia. What protections are there? What are the maybe hidden risks?
And we'll also touch on how Zambia's approach stacks up against laws in other countries. Give you some context.
Okay, sounds good. Let's dive in. Protections first. How are these laws meant to keep ordinary citizens safer online?
Well, one big area is scams. We all see them, right? Fake
Yeah.
promotions, dodgy deals on places like Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
So the Cybercrimes Act, specifically Section 12, makes online misrepresentation and fraud a criminal offense. It gives the authorities, more teeth to actually go after these scammers.
That definitely sounds useful. It feels like you need stronger tools for that.
And tied into that, the other act, the Cybersecurity Act, sets up some important bodies. There's the Zambia Cybersecurity Agency and also a Cyber Incident Response Team, the CRT.
CRT, like a digital emergency team.
Pretty much, yeah. Sections 4 and 6 lay this out. Their job is to jump on cyber attacks when they happen, and also, crucially, to let the public know about ongoing threats, keep people informed.
Okay, so that's about responding to incidents. What about preventing them, especially for really important services, like banks or hospitals?
Good question. The Cybersecurity Act tackles that too. Sections 7 through 10 demand specific cybersecurity measures for what they call critical information infrastructure.
Which includes banks, hospitals.
Exactly. Banks, hospitals, telecoms, the essential services we rely on. The idea is to make them harder targets for cyber attacks.
And they have to report problems, right, if they get hit.
Yes, that's Section 17. If there's a cybersecurity incident, these critical organizations must report it. Helps build a bigger picture of the threats.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to something maybe more personal for a lot of listeners, online bullying and harassment. Does the legislation address that?
It does, quite directly. Section 22 of the Cyber Crimes Act criminalizes online harassment and cyberbullying.
What does that actually cover?
Things like sending offensive or humiliating stuff, spreading false information deliberately to wreck someone's reputation, or, making them a target for public ridicule. Kitwe Online highlighted this section too.
That's a significant step. It's such a nasty part of online life sometimes.
It really is. And related to vulnerable groups, there's a strong focus on protecting children.
Ah, good. What's in there?
The Cyber Crimes Act has a whole part dedicated to it. Section 15 tackles child pornography, making it, selling it, distributing it, even possessing or accessing it. Very. And it doesn't stop there. Section 16 covers child solicitation. Section 17 deals with grooming, and Section 18 addresses online human trafficking involving children. It's quite robust.
That's definitely reassuring to hear. So there are clear benefits, clear protections being put in place. But like with any major legislation, there are usually potential downsides or risks too. What are the concerns here?
One of the main areas flagged, particularly by Kitwe Online, revolves around surveillance. The Cybersecurity Act, in Section 21, continues the Central Monitoring and Coordination Center.
Okay, so a central point for monitoring communications.
Essentially, yes. Now, Section 29 does say that lawful interception needs a judge's approval. That's a key safeguard.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
Well, the concern is about potential misuse. The Cybersecurity Agency itself reports directly to the president, leading to questions about independent oversight.
I see. So the mechanism exists, but oversight might be an issue.
Exactly. Plus, Sections 23 and 24 regulate who can use, make, or even possess interception devices. And then there's Section 30. It allows law enforcement to request interception, just verbally. No warrant needed initially if they believe there's imminent danger, like a life-threatening situation unfolding right now.
Okay, that's a specific scenario, but still, the potential for broad access is there.
It certainly makes people think about their privacy, even with the legal checks in place.
Understandable. What about freedom of speech? That often comes up with cyber laws.
Definitely. Section 22 of the Cyber Crimes Act, the same one dealing with harassment, also prohibits spreading false information.
False information. That sounds vague.
That's precisely the worry. Without a clear definition, could this be used to clamp down on dissent or satire? Kitwe Online raises the example. Could you get arrested for sharing a political meme deemed false, especially around election time?
Yeah. That ambiguity is a potential problem. Laws targeting fake news can sometimes be a double-edged sword.
Exactly. Intent matters, but proving intent versus genuine mistake or satire, it gets tricky legally. It could have a chilling effect.
Are there other groups who might face specific challenges? Maybe tech businesses?
Yes, that's another point raised. The Cybersecurity Act, in sections 41 and 42, brings in licensing requirements for anyone providing cybersecurity services.
So, if you run a small IT security firm or you're an ethical hacker helping companies find vulnerabilities,
You'll likely need a license. The aim might be to professionalize the sector, which isn't necessarily bad, but the worry is that the cost and the red tape involved could really hit small startups or individual techies hard.
so it could actually stifle the local tech scene a bit, the very people you need to boost cybersecurity.
That's the potential downside, yeah. Balancing regulation with innovation is always tough.
It really is. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. How do these Zambian laws compare to what other countries are doing? You mentioned Kenya, South Africa earlier.
Right. In Africa, Kenya's cybercrime laws have been around a while, but as Kidwe Online notes, they've faced criticism from rights groups over potential misuse against, say, journalists or activists. Similar concerns to the ones we just discussed about Zambia's false information bit.
Okay, and South Africa.
South Africa has its Cybercrimes Act, but also POPI, the Protection of Personal Information Act. POPI is very specifically about data privacy. Zambia's approach seems a bit different, sort of weaving data protection into the broader Cybersecurity Act, especially for that critical infrastructure data. Less of a separate, dedicated privacy law like POPIA.
Interesting difference in structure. Anywhere else in Africa?
Nigeria's also brought in cyber laws, but apparently they've struggled with, again, vague wording and actually enforcing them effectively. Seems to be a common challenge.
Finding that right balance. What about beyond Africa, like the EU, India, the US?
Well, the EU's GDPR is often seen as the gold standard for privacy, focusing heavily on personal data rights. As we said, Zambia's acts are broader security, crime, and some data protection elements mixed in.
So not directly comparable to GDPR's specific focus.
Not entirely, no. Then you look at India's IT Act amendments, or some U.S. laws like FISA. These are often pointed to, like in the Kidwe Online piece, as examples where governments have been given quite broad surveillance powers. So the concerns about Zambia's Central Monitoring Center echo debates happening elsewhere, too.
It really puts Zambia's laws in a global context of governments trying to regulate the internet, but facing similar questions about security versus liberty.
Absolutely. It's a universal tension in the digital age.
Okay, to make this really concrete for people listening, let's think through some examples. How might this affect, say, young people in Zambia?
Okay, imagine a teenager shares a meme on WhatsApp or Facebook. Maybe it's funny, but it contains something that's not quite true, potentially false information under Section 22 of the Cybercrimes Act.
Could they actually get in trouble for that?
Potentially, yes. Which raises questions for young people, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
how aware are you of where the line is between a joke and something legally risky now? What are your biggest worries, privacy or being able to speak freely online?
And what responsibility do they feel they have to, not spread harmful stuff or bully others? It's a lot to navigate.
It really is.
What about entrepreneurs? We touched on the licensing.
Right. Think of that small Zambian tech startup offering, say, penetration testing, helping companies find security weaknesses. Suddenly, they need to figure out the licensing under sections 41 and 42.
So the questions for them are practical. How does this impact your business? Is it just more cost and paperwork? Or are there upsides, maybe more trust in licensed providers?
Exactly. And what are the real challenges versus the opportunities for cybersecurity businesses now? How do you stay compliant, but also agile and competitive?
Loads for them to consider. And finally, what about lawyers and the courts?
Picture a legal case, maybe online defamation. A key piece of evidence might be messages intercepted using the powers in the Cybersecurity Act.
Ah, so admissibility becomes a big question.
Precisely. How will the courts interpret lawful interception? How will they balance national security claims against privacy rights under the Constitution? What will they decide false information actually means in practice? Or critical information?
These definitions seem crucial.
They are. And how do judges and lawyers see these Zambian laws fitting with international standards? What are the strengths they see? The weaknesses? It's going to generate a lot of legal discussion and likely challenges.
These examples really bring home how wide-ranging the impact could be. Okay, let's try and pull this together. What are the main things you think our listeners should take away from this deep dive?
I think the core message is that Zambia's 2025 cyber laws are a major effort to update the rules for the digital age. There are definite positives trying to tackle scams, protect kids, secure vital services. That's the clear intention. But at the same time, they bring in significant surveillance powers via the Central Monitoring Center, even with judicial checks. And the vague language around things like false information creates real risks for free expression. Plus, the potential impact on the tech sector through licensing needs watching.
So it really highlights that classic balancing act, doesn't it? Security versus freedom.
It's right there, starkly, in these acts. The desire to protect citizens and the state from digital threats, bumping up against fundamental rights, and the need for, open discourse and innovation.
Which leaves us and you listening with a big question to ponder. As more and more of our lives happen online,
How do we make sure the laws meant to keep us safe don't end up restricting us unfairly or holding back progress? What's the role for ordinary citizens in watching how these laws are actually used and maybe shaping how they evolve? It's something we all need to think about.